Welcome to episode 5 of Eye on Horror. I'm your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing good. Happy to be here yet again.
And also with me, as always, is our other host from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Jonathan Correa. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to be in the city that Rocky's from. The steps are actually not too far from me, so I'll be going by there a little bit later.
I hope you're going to be running up them.
I don't run.
And then scream, Adrian!
Adrian!
Seriously, how many people do you think run up those steps a day and think that they're the first to do it?
I think everybody does. That's one of the things when I go to places, I don't like to go to touristy spots, as our listeners know with me going to fucking Waco. So
Yeah.
It's not on any tourist destination list.
Real maverick move there, John.
But it made for good podcasting, though. Let's get into some news. Lots of cool stuff happening. We are recording this on May the 4th, so May the 4th be with both of you. So if something happens in the week before this posts, we're not ignoring it. It hasn't happened yet. But the big news right now is that Blumhouse and Hulu have teamed up to bring an anthology series. I think it's called Into the Dark, is what I believe it's going to be called, and it's going to be hitting Hulu in October.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm always down for more anthology TV shows. Lord knows that we need more, especially since we don't have any more Tales from the Crypt right now.
Sad but true. And the interesting thing, from what I've heard, is that it's going to be a monthly series, so it's not like weekly episodes. It's like it's kind of like a mini movie every month.
That's interesting because is that gonna the thing with that is that gonna keep people coming each month, or is that too much time between each episode and people will forget, especially in this time of streaming where everything's readily available almost immediately?
Like Jacob said, it's going to be basically a movie. It's kind of like a Blumhouse's movie of the month. You're not really going to miss anything. The one thing that scares me about it is I'm hoping that Blumhouse doesn't just dump the scripts that they don't deem worthy of theatrical release to this. And I don't want to get basically a monthly shitty movie, is right. What I'm saying. But you also have to think Blumhouse has a pretty good vault. This is going to give them an opportunity to produce more stuff that they probably wouldn't if they were going to throw it into theaters. So
right.
They kind of have the golden touch right now. So hopefully it's going to be a good thing. We'll see in October.
I mean, we can't expect them to have like monthly get-outs. There's got to be an occasional Happy Death Day or Truth or Dare in there. But at least what I'm hoping for is something along the lines of Masters of Horror. I'm a huge fan of that show. Mm-hmm. And there were some duds. Of course, there's always duds with some stuff, but they did some like really cool and interesting stuff with it because they treated it like they were making an hour-long movie for each episode. So if they can at least capture that spirit of it, I think we'll get some pretty good stuff out of it. I mean, Masters of Horror gave us Cigarette Burns and Imprint, and both of those are two of my just flat-out favorite horror films. Cigarette Burns was amazing, and Imprint is one of the few horror films to actually make me have a physical reaction. I actually almost puked because of that movie. So
yeah, I love that Miike's movie was it was like basically pulled because it was too intense even for Showtime.
Yeah, too intense for Showtime. Yeah,
too intense for paid premium cable. That's so Miike. It's not even like. Of course, he would make a movie that was too fucked up for the channels that show porn and, you know, massive violence.
Too intense for the channel that brought us Dexter.
Yeah,
indeed.
In further television news, let's go with the sad one first. The Tremors television show is no more. It has been canceled before it has even hit the ground, which sucks for fans of Tremors, because we had Kevin Bacon coming back.
Yeah.
Right.
So how could it lose?
But as someone who's not a fan of Tremors, like I saw the first one as a teenager, is it really that sad? I mean, we just got a 5th Tremors movie.
6.
And they've already had a Tremor... Or 6. Oh, my apologies to Tremors fans out there. We just had a 6th Tremors movie, and we've already had a TV show. So, I don't know. Is there enough Tremors out there? I mean...
I was actually looking forward to it. I've been a big fan of the entire series for as long as I can remember. I've seen all of them. And, we did get that TV show in like the early 2000s, but I mean, this is Kevin Bacon returning to the franchise, so I was really interested in seeing what they were going to do. And, I at least want to see the pilot and, to see what they were going for. Somebody even suggested, like, maybe that could be the 7th Tremors movie.
Right.
Like it was. They don't do it as much nowadays, but they turn pilots into feature-length movies or TV movies. So maybe it's still on the table because all we got so far is just a few pictures of Kevin Bacon and the cowboy duds again. But I mean, I'd just be interested in seeing it if they already made it.
I think it might have been our pal John Squires who suggested a feature edit on Twitter.
Right.
Because I think I saw the same tweet you did.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right.
I think it'll probably depend on how much they have in the can. TV show's done. Let's just streamline this and do an hour and a half. Because, really, do you need any more than an hour and a half of a Tremors movie? No one wants to see a 2.5-hour Tremors movie.
Unless it was directed by Paul Thomas Anderson.
I would watch the fuck out of that. I would. Starring Daniel Day-Lewis as the Grabozoid. Graboid. See, again, I'm sorry, Tremor fans. I'm going to get so much backlash from all 7 of them.
Moving on to more TV news, and this one I am thrilled about. There's going to be a What We Do in the Shadows television series on FX.
Yes.
And that is going to be brilliant. If it's even half as good as the movie, I'm in with both feet.
Yeah, and it's going to be on FX, and they've had a pretty good track record for these types of adaptations. I'm pretty excited.
Oh, I'm super excited. I mean, everything that director has done has been pretty great. A huge fan of Thor, a huge fan of, of everything that they've made. And the movie is one of my favorites from, 2015 it came out?
14.
14 or 15, yeah.
14,
it was around there.
It's just, that movie's so quotable. And
yeah, and the great thing about it is that it really subverted genre by applying kind of more sitcom elements to it, and this show is going to be a sitcom about vampires living together, and that's great.
I'm picturing it like The Real World on MTV, but with which is basically what the movie was almost. Yeah. They were people sitting down, and one of my favorite parts of the movie is when one of the guys is sitting down with Peter, the old Nosferatu-like one, and he's talking about how when Peter changed into a vampire, and he goes, "And we've been best friends ever since." And the look on Peter's face, he just has that grin that he has kind of through the whole movie.
Yeah.
The whole Nosferatu thing, yeah.
Because he's the 2,000-year-old one. The other guys are like 600 years old.
Right.
And I'm pretty interested because I think this one may be set in America.
Yep.
I'll be interested in seeing how American vampires live as opposed to the New Zealand vampires that we saw in the movie.
Are they going to be the same vampires, or are they going to introduce new characters?
I think it's going to be new characters. I could be mistaken, but from what I remember, it seemed like it was going to be a new set of characters.
Other great news, something that I'm super stoked about is Guillermo del Toro's adaptations of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Received funding. So for those who possibly may not know what Scary Tales to Tell in the Dark, they were a collection of these like campfire stories that had the greatest illustrations. Like the stories, even when they weren't that good, the illustrations made them terrifying. And they were just, I still have my trilogy, my original copy of the trilogy to this day. But even more exciting is not only is Del Toro producing it, it's being directed by, I'm going to mess up his last name, Andre Ovredel. Sorry, I'm terrible with names, but the director of Troll Hunter and Autopsy of Jane Doe. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that movie. I don't know if the illustrations are going to take a huge play in it. Like if it's animated, that would be cool to see those animated, or just have, just callbacks to it with imagery and whatnot. But either way, a newly produced movie by Del Toro is always exciting.
And have they said if it's going to be an anthology or if it's just going to be a couple stories or several stories?
You know what? I'm not entirely too sure about that. There's very little that has been released about it, like what it's actually going to be about. Now it's casting, but now that they have funding, principal photography should be coming along at any time. You know, I
Right.
believe it's from our website, the current plot is very vague, but it says that, you know, it follows a group of young teens who must solve the mysteries surrounding sudden and macabre deaths in their small town. So it sounds like it may have like a full narrative thing, kind of, but maybe they'll do something like what they did with the Goosebumps film and just have it, you know, all the various stories and imagery have a huge play in the narrative, which I honestly didn't hate the Goosebumps movie. I thought it was,
I
thought it was a
I
lot
thought
of
it
fun.
was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. The Werewolf of Fever Swamp in a supermarket.
Yes.
And who could forget good old Slappy?
Slappy.
Who looks suspiciously like Jack Black.
And the sequel for Goosebumps is coming soon too.
Yes.
October, right?
I believe so, yeah. Which is also funny because Jack Black is doing another young adult kind of horror movie with John Billar's The House with a Clock on Its Walls, directed by, of all people, Eli Roth.
Eli Roth, here's my theory. A lot of people hated Eli Roth's Death Wish because it was decidedly not Eli Rothian. You know, it had a couple of moments of Eli Roth-ish stuff, but I think he was bridging the gap between Green Inferno and The House with a Clock on Its Wall. See, I think it's a stepping stone to, quote, legitimate cinema for him. You know, I think he wants to do the Robert Rodriguez thing.
You mean he's gonna actually try to make a good movie? Sorry. I'm not. Listen, I like the guy. I think he says a lot of really good stuff. He's very knowledgeable. I love hearing him talk. I still think the best thing he made was the fake trailer for Thanksgiving and Grindhouse. But everything else, like his movies, for me at least, I get excited about them. Like Green Inferno, I was really pumped about that. And I was just so bored out of my mind in the beginning of that movie that I shut it off because I just couldn't stand those people. And that always tends to happen with his movies, is that like there's a lot that I like, but there's always like right when I start really getting into it and really liking it, he does something like, what was it, Cabin Fever, the nunchuck kid with the boner, was it that one? Or the kids who like murdered someone because they gave them a fuck ton of gum.
Wait, what?
Like Hostel, the first one, they gave these kids gum. Yeah. And they basically like...
Well, they're the Bubblegum Gang.
Yeah, just... It was just one of those things where it's... You lost me. I just keep having those moments. It's like, all right, you lost me. I'm out. Sorry.
All right.
Do we have any other news?
Yes. It's a little fringe horror sounding, but the new Venom trailer finally came out.
Yes. Okay.
And, wow. So we finally get our first view of Venom. Not fully in action, but we see him, and he's cool looking. His eyes aren't as big as in the comics. You know, he's not entirely looking like Venom, but I think the design's pretty cool. I didn't even hate the design in Spider-Man 3, but I kind of like this one a bit more. It still kind of looks like a superhero movie that was made in like 2006 or something. Not Spider-Man 2, of course, but I can't be the only one who thinks that they mispronounce symbiote, right? It's symbiote, not symbiote, right?
I believe it's the regional dialect of wherever that character went to science school. I'm falling apart in my head.
Science school?
How do you get into science
I always
school?
heard it as symbiote or symbiote. Damn it! Now I'm getting confused. I don't know.
Sorry,
either way, it's
school.
Either way, it's alien space.
I had you
goo
going
monster.
until I said science school. Sorry, we're losing. Okay, Jacob. Sorry.
I don't know. It does look interesting, and they do seem to be adapting for more when Venom was a solo character.
Right.
Because a lot of people forget, like, back in the 90s, Venom was huge. Like, I think for a time he was even more popular than Spider-Man.
Yep. And since then, he's had his own comics where he had, like, his own core and stuff. Like, there was multiple like, they were a team anti-hero type deal.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing, though. This is going to be Venom, but without Spider-Man, supposedly. So, be interesting to see how that kind of ends up, or like how they write that out.
Yeah, just hoping for not another Ghost Rider. That's all I want. Though Spirit of Vengeance had its moments.
Do we have any other news? Have we hit it all?
I'm good.
I'm good too.
Then let's move on. Do you guys see anything this 2 weeks?
Oh yeah, I finally saw Rampage.
Yes.
And how did that go?
It was a lot of fun. You know, it was by definition, a pure popcorn flick. I had The Rock. It had 3 big scary monsters, a lot of citywide destruction, a few shout-outs to the original series, a lot of gags. Overall, pretty satisfied.
Did it live up to my hype? And for those who don't know, Jacob was a bit sick when we recorded the last episode, and I told him that Rampage was not only going to cure him of his illness, but it was going to help make him fly. It's that good. So did it live up to that, Jacob?
Believe the hype. It did.
He actually flew here to Philly, so he's right next to me while we record this.
I mutated and grew some bat wings like the wolf.
Of course the Jacob flies.
I'm usually the guy who sees everything, but there really hasn't been any real horror that has come out. There has been some fringy stuff. The closest thing to a horror movie that I've seen, and it just was released today, is Bad Samaritan. I don't know if you guys have seen what this one's all about. It basically takes a plot point from Eli Roth's Death Wish, where the valets get their victims from the cars that they take, and basically these 2 valets are running a scam where they look up people on people's registrations or in their onboard computers and stuff, and they go to their house, they rob them while they're having dinner. And one of them goes to a house and he finds a girl chained and strapped up, basically a girl who's a prisoner. So the whole movie is like he has to go to the cops and admit that he was breaking into this guy's house. And he has a record and he's from Ireland, so he's afraid he's going to get deported and, all this stuff. But he's like, but I have to save this girl because he couldn't get her out. He was going to come back for her. Anyway, and of course it goes to horrifying places. But it is, it's bloated.
But it's got David Tennant in it, right?
Yeah, but it's pretty bad. Everything is on the nose, and it's funny because when it gets to the final boss battle, the guy, and this is kind of what I mean by it's on the nose, the guy explains his plot like a Bond villain. He's all, and here's what is going to happen, and you can do nothing about it.
No,
like, oh, are you
James? That is a spot on David Tennant impression.
Well, see, that upsets me because I don't have cable, and staying in hotels and other people's places, I'm actually being exposed to commercials for the first time in 2 years at least. And I actually saw a commercial for that yesterday, and I actually thought about seeing that before we recorded this, just so I could have something to talk about. So hearing your thoughts on it makes me go, I made the good decision of just watching Dear White People Season 2.
The marketing's actually pretty good because it basically tells you what I just told you about their valet, service that's ripping people off. And I was actually kind of excited for it, but my first clue was they didn't screen it for the press down here. I actually had to go out opening night with my movie pass and see it. And it's about 20 minutes in, I could see why they didn't screen it. It's just there's so much extra padding. There's the thing. It's a cool concept, and it would probably make a good 22-minute television episode, but they stretch it out for an hour 40. So
I was about to say, it kind of sounds like an episode of like one of those primetime dramas like Law and Order or any of the Chicago shows, which I think the closest thing to horror I've watched since we last spoke was accidentally caught a little bit of a Chicago PD episode, and there was a torture scene, which I was very taken back. I was like, I don't think local PDs are supposed to be allowed to pull some Jack Bauer shit, but
another thing that I saw that is not horror at all, but it's similar to Tyler Perry's Acrimony. The last 20 minutes is worth watching. It's a movie called Kings with Halle Berry and Daniel Craig. It's basically about the LA riots and the events leading up to the LA riots of, was it 91 or 92, I think. And the last 20 minutes when the riot's actually going on and these people are out in it, it's a more realistic version of what The Purge would be if The Purge was real. Because, stuff is burning, there's people looting, there's, people beating the hell out of each other, people jumping in, there's one shot where guy's driving a convertible and one of the rioters jumps on him from behind, and basically makes him crash his car. It's, it's pretty horrific, but it's a good, hour and 10 minutes to get to that point.
Gotcha.
So it's one of those things that if you see it on HBO, make a mental note to come back for the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I got some like straight up horror that I've seen recently too. Like one that I would highly recommend that I was fortunate enough to catch at a screening last week was Ryuhei Kitamura's Downrange, which is now on Shudder, and it's got a pretty simple plot, but it is very edge of your seat. It's basically this group of friends are heading to another friend's birthday party, and they take the back roads in California, and their tire goes out, and so they go out to change the tire. Although the reason why their tire went out is because there's like a camouflage sniper across the road who's taking shots at them, and so they have to figure out a way to survive. And it was really outstanding. Like it's one of those movies that gives you an adrenaline rush while you watch it. It's very subversive of genre because it's basically a slasher movie, except the slasher has a sniper rifle. When I was at the Q&A, they even talked about it, the inception. The idea was like they were trying to think what was scary, and like Jason Voorhees with a machete isn't so scary anymore, but Jason Voorhees with a sniper rifle, really scary.
That makes me really excited to go back to LA.
Talking about riots and sniper rifles.
I know, guys.
But yeah, so Downrange is on Shudder. Definitely would recommend that. And back on Tremors, I actually caught the sixth one, Cold Day in Hell, also on Netflix. And yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it was a cool change of concept, like Graboids in the Arctic, and Michael Gross is back, and a couple other surprises here and there. Yeah, it's low budget, but they seem to make the most of it, and it's a fun creature feature. It's on Netflix.
Was Jamie Kennedy tolerable
in
it?
Yes. Okay. Oh, well, yeah, he's in it. But yeah, no, he was pretty good.
He has his moments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his character is kind of meant to be obnoxious, but it's not really that bad.
Yeah, because with him and similar actors like that, like it seems like they just kind of go too far with it. So like he was good in the Scream movies, but then everything after that, it was just like, this is too much.
Have you guys seen Jamie Kennedy's that documentary? I think it's called Hecklers.
No.
It's basically him whining about being heckled as a comedian, and he talks to other comedians and he talks to hecklers. But the coolest part about it, there's a section about Uwe Boll
oh god,
challenging all of those critics to boxing matches. So these critics all think I think it was in Spain, they all think they're getting this free trip to Spain, and when he got them in the ring, it was no joke. That dude is a boxer, and he beats the crap out of these 5 movie critics.
Well, that part I knew about.
Yeah. Well, I think it's part of a longer documentary called Raging Bull.
Oh god.
Yeah,
I think they did take that, but it's so lesson to all of you movie critics out there: if Uwe Boll invites you to Spain, don't go.
Say that. I just smack talked Eli Roth, and that dude works out. So,
although funny you should mention that, because the next challenger for Uwe Boll may be none other than Alex Jones. Like Uwe Boll
really?
Called Alex Jones out online. I mean, I haven't really checked on the status of this supposed fight, but I would pay good money to see Uwe Boll fight Alex Jones in the ring.
I would watch the shit out of that because I don't like either of those men, and it would be great just to see them just duke it out. I thought you were going to say it was Uwe Boll versus whoever, I forget which studio put out Rampage.
I was actually thinking that too when he said Uwe Boll's new challenger. I was thinking they were going to send The Rock to fight him.
No, God.
He's pissed at the studio who made Rampage because he said that it's taking away from his trilogy. Oh, it's Warner Brothers. So Uwe Boll was threatening legal action against Warner Brothers, saying that the movie Rampage, starring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, was taking away from his trilogy called Rampage, which is utter trash. I think it was back when Netflix had an autoplay feature for like a hot minute, and like I fell asleep during a movie, and I woke up to the middle of the first one, and I watched 2 seconds and was like, ugh, I'm all set. But which I find weird because it's not even Uwe Boll's Rampage is not the first movie to be called Rampage.
No.
There was one made in the 80s.
Yeah.
That was scored by Ennio Morricone. So, I mean,
and you can't copyright a title.
No.
So it's a losing case. But if he wants to box about it, I'm pretty sure Rampage would send The Rock.
I'd watch the shit out of that too.
Yeah, Yeah, I think we'd know who'd win that one.
All right, anything else you guys seen, or are we ready to move on?
Well, Avengers Infinity War, although I can't really talk about it.
No, we cannot talk about that because because Korea hasn't seen it. We'll talk about Infinity War a little bit. It's not really horror, but it's definitely something that we can fanboy out on, and I think people
maybe next week.
Just leave it at this. It's really good. You should see it.
Well, let's move on to subgenre of the bye week. What do you got for us, Jacob?
All right. Well, because it's May the 4th, and May the 4th be with you all always, I figured it'd be a great time to talk about space horror. And so, of course, the big one is Alien. You know, that's, I think, the quintessential space horror movie, the classic. But also a big fan of kind of the alien mockbustery type movies like Roger Corman's Galaxy of Terror and William Malone's Creature with the great Klaus Kinski. And
yes.
Yeah, and it's always funny to me how just kind of the film equivalent of jumping the shark is whenever a horror franchise goes into space, especially because it seems to usually fall around the fourth movies, because you got your Leprechaun 4 in space,
which is a genius movie. Leprechaun in Space is probably my second favorite, because I like it when he goes to the hood. But yeah,
yes.
Well, I like it when he goes back to the hood, because that's when he raps.
Well, he raps in both.
Yeah.
But anyway, in the fourth one, the Leprechaun does use a lightsaber.
Yep.
So don't forget about that.
It's become such a thing. I mean, even John Squires, one of our pals and favorite writers out there for horror, named his original blog Freddy in Space as like a mock to that. But yeah, a lot of franchises have it. Hellraiser has one. I think it was the fourth or fifth one.
Bloodlines.
I stopped watching after the third, and then we of course got Jason X, which is personally my favorite of the horror franchises going to space.
It took him 10 movies to get to space.
Yeah.
A little longer than most, but
I'm still waiting for Jigsaw in Space, just having some space-based, would you like to play a game? If you don't complete this task, you will be sucked out into the vacuum of space through your butthole,
What about Ghostface in Space?
That's when it gets super meta with, like, having a bunch of, no, don't go, because the alien's going to be in the crate, just like Jamie Kennedy as a cyborg in space.
And funny you mentioned Jason X, because I was actually thinking about this, that before, I think it was before Jason X, there was this sketch on Mad TV called Friday Apollo the 13th, where they did a parody of like Apollo 13, but Jason's on the space shuttle and like tries to take out Neil Armstrong.
I remember that, yeah.
Oh man, that'd be great. I think that's going to be the next Tremors movie. They brought him to the Arctic. They're already at number 6. Right? 5?
Number 6.
Number 6. So I think Tremors is due to see some
space graboids.
There we go, graboids. Okay, I was about to mispronounce it again. Sorry, Tremors fans. I'm apologizing to you guys a lot this episode.
The guy who had a problem with the pronunciation symbiote can't even say graboids.
Graboids. I can. I just keep wanting to say grabazoids. Yeah. Someday. When I re-pop in my HD DVD of Tremors, I'll be able to remember it's graboids, not grabazoids.
Yeah, and I was talking about some of the Alien ripoffs earlier. Although, Galaxy of Terror is pretty interesting because, for aesthetically, it's kind of a Alien rip, and it even had James Cameron as like a special effects guy for it. But it's really more of a take on Forbidden Planet, which is ironic because Corman's Forbidden World is the more blatant Alien ripoff. But anyway,
I have a funny story about A Galaxy of Terror.
Oh, go on.
I remember seeing it when I was very young.
Oh.
And then, but I didn't know the name of it. So I actually have kind of and I just discovered maybe a year ago what it actually was. Whenever Aaron Moran died is when I discovered the name of the movie, because I went back and I watched it. And I'm like, I have been looking for this freaking movie for like 35 years. Because I remember because they go to that little pyramid thing and they're going through the tunnels with their and I remember that vividly. And for a while I was thinking, did I dream that? Because it was on late at night on HBO or something. Maybe I fell asleep and I dreamt it. And I was thinking, okay, if I did dream it, I'd have to write this down because that's my golden ticket. But then I found out it was Galaxy of Terror. So anyway. Funny little story about Galaxy of Terror and me.
Your golden ticket was a movie that was already made decades ago.
Damn it! Back to the drawing board.
You peaked before you even realized it.
I peaked at age 8.
Speaking of Freddy in Space, that one had Robert Englund in it too before Nightmare on Elm Street. So
Yes.
technically, we got Freddy in Space just before he became Freddy.
One of my favorite space subgenres within the space ones is space vampires. Mario Bava, of course, made a few good ones, and of course, Toby Hooper's Life Force.
Yeah.
While I have issues with it, it's just an all-around fun movie. Life Force, which Scream Factory just announced that they're re-releasing a brand new steelbook of it, and I think the new steelbook is going to include a new transfer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's going to have a 4K transfer because I guess the one that came out before was not 4K. It might have been 2K.
They weren't really into doing transfers when they first started doing their collector's editions. That's more of the last couple of years. I think they were just, I don't know if they had the funds or were just trying to put them out, but yeah, they're doing a brand new transfer. It's the steelbook artwork is awesome. They're also doing one for The Howling and Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
But the thing about the Life Force one is if you're going to double dip for the transfer, you still have to keep your old one because the one that has the making of documentary, that one, they still don't have the rights to that documentary. So that one is out of print and, goes for like $150 on eBay. I don't know if it's actually $150, but
I bought mine for $60.
Oh,
I got mine around the time it first came out, so I got lucky.
I got mine when it was on sale at one point at Fry's for $14.99, and they had 4 of them, and this is right before it went out of print. And I'm thinking, why the hell didn't I buy all of them?
See, I hate these conversations because I got my Life Force when I was into all right, I'm going to get all the Scream Factory collector's editions with their slipcovers. That's going to be my one. I don't care if I like the movie or not. I'm going to get it. And yeah, that was the most expensive one. I think I paid double what I usually got for them with their slipcases. And so yeah, I missed out. But then again, that's what happens when you're late to the party.
Yeah, it happens. But anyway, I'm a big fan of Life Force. It was one of Hooper's Golden Globus films with Cannon. Let's see, and I always forget it was co-written by Dan O'Bannon, who wrote Alien. So it's got the pedigree, and. Yeah, and even though, the whole thing, Matilda May is definitely the highlight. Oh, and Patrick Stewart. But, yeah, just, it is, a real cosmic horror story to it. Because, it's, the giant living spaceship and the horrible, space vampires thing. I feel it's still a really creepy movie, especially with the subtext for the vampirism and I guess STDs and stuff. Yeah, and in terms of more recent space horror movies, let's see, there was that movie Life, which I wanted to see, but I never really got the chance. Did either of you guys see that one?
Yeah, I think I liked Life more than the average person did. It's basically Alien. Quite honestly, if you watch it, you'll recognize the plot. It's pretty much Alien, but it's a lot of fun. And there was the thing is, it's one of those movies where no one is safe. You have these huge stars in it, and they're cannon fodder, pretty much. But it's the buzz at the time, bringing us back to Venom, is people thought that it was a Venom prequel. I mean, that was the rumor, and it could have gone that way. In fact, it still wouldn't surprise me if Venom starts with the last scene of Life, honestly.
Oh, man.
But I think Life suffered from its name. They should have called it Space Station Terror or something,
Mutant blob from the depths of space. Yeah. It doesn't scream horror or suspense, but I've heard it's one of those movies where you hear a lot of critics don't like. But then when you talk to someone, they're like, it's actually really fun. And I've had it digitally for a while, and maybe I should give that one a shot soon.
It's worth seeing. You will definitely recognize it as beat for beat Alien.
Like the opening 5 minutes or opening 10 minutes of Rampage. Yeah.
The opening 10 minutes of Rampage could have been the last 10 minutes of Life. Not really, but
it always goes back to Rampage. It always will. I'll make sure of that.
Speaking of taking things back with Toby Hooper, it's kind of interesting because, I guess technically he kind of did a sci-fi horror earlier. Well, rather, he was taken off one with The Dark.
Oh, that's one of my kinder traumas. I loved The Dark.
Oh.
He didn't... Did he actually direct it, though? I think he got removed.
Yeah, that was the thing. He was replaced with John Bud Carlos, but, he was originally kind of doing, like, a straight-up horror movie about this isolated kid or mutant with psychic powers that was held in prison by his family until like a fire burns down the house and he escapes and starts killing people across the city. But then this came out around the same time Star Wars did, so then the producers thought, oh, we got to make it all sci-fi because that's what the kids are into, and so they got into conflict with Toby Hooper about it, and they had to kick him off, and they brought in John Carlos, and then they added like all this crazy stuff about like Casey Kasem as a scientist who says the DNA is from like something not of this earth, and they added in all these special effects of instead of people being ripped apart, they're being blown up with lasers for some reason.
He's an alien werewolf who shoots lasers from his eyes.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like a Frankenstein's monster from space.
And for the kids listening, Casey Kasem is known as the voice of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
The Dark, I remember it was one of those movies when I was a kid. I stumbled upon it just randomly on like HBO or something late at night, and I had to sleep with my parents after watching it because it scared. And when you look back on it in retrospect, you're like, it's not really that scary. But, when you're like a 7-year-old kid, it's pretty scary. I think I actually watched it twice and had to sleep with my parents both times. They're like, oh, again?
Well, this is actually a perfect segue into our topic of the week, which is horror movies that legitimately scared us or had a lasting effect on us. One of the things that we wanted to touch upon were movies that scared us as a child, or like a horror movie that really got to us. And it could be from our childhood or from not, but even if it's not horror, just something that like really stuck. So as James was talking about with The Dark, sometimes you catch even just a glimpse or two and you're just like, fuck this noise. I know Poltergeist 3 was that movie when I was a kid. Just that one scene where she's running through the parking lot. I think it's the cousin to the little girl. She's running through the parking lot and just disappears into the ground. Terrified the shit out of me when I was a kid.
The first thing I can remember basically scaring the crap out of me, and I must have been probably 3 or 4. It was one of my earliest memories. It was on TV. It was Sesame Street. And what it is there is a segment on Sesame Street with a hand. Have you seen it?
You got to be more specific.
It's just a hand, and it says, I'm a hand. I can wave. I can count. I can snap my fingers and stuff. And then at one point it says, I can be scary, and it makes a claw. And that it was to the point where whenever I'd be watching, because Sesame Street, they'll recycle their bits.
Right.
When I'd be watching Sesame Street, and if I saw that come on, I would either change the channel or look away because I did not want to see that hand turn into a claw, because it was so scary to me.
And then when Labyrinth came out, it just amplified that with the helping hands. Is that correct?
I already had a thing for hands.
We're helping hands.
Scary, scary, scary hands.
After that, it was Large Marge in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That, because you're sitting here, you're watching Pee-wee, and all of a sudden, and it looked like this. And it's a terrifying moment, and I don't think I'm alone. I think, and the other one from kind of the same era, it may have actually been a little bit before, but Twilight Zone the movie.
Yes.
The opening scene where they're, let the midnight space, they're driving and then they start talking. Do you want to see something really scary? It's Dan Aykroyd.
No. This is really scary. Yeah. No. Yeah.
They weren't kidding.
You want to see something really scary? And then he turns in. Oh, terrifying.
Yeah.
But anyway, those, and I think I already told you guys about Tentacles, the opening scene of Tentacles. Mm-hmm. Those are the moments that haunted my childhood. I won't say they traumatized me, although the hand from Sesame Street kind of did. But I mean, now the Twilight Zone one, I loved it. It scared me. It wasn't something I avoided. Every time I'd watch it, I'd be like, oh, here comes, yeah! And it would get me every time, but I would love it. So I think that might be where my enjoyment of being scared came from, was that opening scene of Twilight Zone movie.
And I can relate to that. Twilight Zone, the movie, had that effect on me as a child, too, because it would always be on TV, and I would always catch different segments of it. And the Spielberg tale, like, if you catch it in on that, you get taken in by it, and it's like, oh, this really sentimental, really beautiful story, which, you know, we'll get into what happened when that movie was made at a later time, probably. But then you get to stuff like, I believe, Joe Dante's segment with the kid with the mental powers. It's a Good Life. That was just how the family would react around the kid, just being like, no, they don't need to go to that place. It was terrifying. But George Miller's, I've rewatched Twilight Zone the movie recently, and George Miller's segment of the man on the plane with John Lithgow, holy shit. Yeah. That was like so pure George Miller. Like, it was probably the most George Miller thing that has been made that doesn't have a talking pig or take place in a post-apocalyptic environment, because he just went insane with some of those cuts and some of those techniques. He even threw in the bulging eyes from the first Mad Max into there, and I was blown away.
One of my favorite TV bits from the last 20, it might have even been longer than 20 years ago, but did you guys watch Third Rock from the Sun with John Lithgow on it?
Yeah.
Well, William Shatner played the big head, and at the end of one of the episodes, once they kind of made a joke about it. He, the big head
arrives by plane.
Yeah, they're picking him up at the airport, and John Lithgow asks him, "So how was your flight?" And William Shatner goes, "Not good. I kept looking out the window and seeing something on the wing of the plane." And Lithgow goes, "The same thing happened to me a couple years ago." Those are the two guys who have played that part.
That's an amazing callback.
Anyway, as for me, I guess it's kind of two-tiered, just in terms of the general kind of kinder trauma stuff. Like, I was terrified of witches as a child because I think basically in the childhood food train, witches are the natural predators of children, so naturally I was afraid of witches. The Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Well, also you're from New England, so that's just naturally in our blood to be terrified of witches.
Oh yeah, you stay out of the woods. And and plus, I was only 10 when the Blair Witch Project came out, so witches were really scary during my youth, on many levels. And also, same to you guys, I caught something when I was way too young to have seen it. Hellbound Hellraiser 2, I think I must have watched it on the Sci-Fi Channel or something when I was 5, and it scared the living hell out of me, and I had to sleep in my parents' bedroom for a while and try and deal with that. It was that Dr. Channard guy, not Pinhead, who scared me. He had the snake hands, and he was attached to that giant demon tendril thing, and he'd I recommend amputation, and just that booming voice, just really freaked me out as a kid. And I think the other big one too, I caught Chuck Russell's The Blob on TV when I was fairly young, and that bit where it sucks that guy down the drain really freaked me out, because then I was afraid that the blob would try and get me while I was in the bath or while I'm brushing my teeth and suck me down the drain. That'd mess you up.
What about more modern stuff that has really affected you like that, away from kids? What has what has messed you up as an adult? What movies?
Oh, I got an easy answer to that one. Panos Cosmatos' Beyond the Black Rainbow. Even before I saw the actual movie, the trailer alone was really disturbed me. It was that crazy tech score and just undiscernible story, and just the aesthetic, just everything about it really messed with me. And when I finally did get the chance to see it at the Brattle Theater in Harvard Square, me and my friends decided to go check it out. We just figured it'd be kind of a crazy sci-fi horror movie. But also the other factor here was that I had a head cold at the time, so I was on cold medicine, so I was in kind of an altered state myself, and we sat front row center, and it was just a total mind melter, and it really messed with my head. And it was such a genuinely terrifying movie too. Like the scene where Elena, the psychic girl, is like escaping and she runs into that horrible straitjacketed mutant. Like when it roars at her, like a woman in the audience behind me actually screamed and fell out of her seat. Swear to God. And there's something about it. It's just, like it's kind of because it has kind of that Rorschach test plot where like you kind of have to fill in the blanks with your own imagination, and the stuff you come up with is very disturbing. And yeah, just it is still probably one of the scariest movies to me of the 2010s. It just really got to me at a very deep level.
For me, definitely as a kid, there's two movies that truly stand out. The first, and this wasn't even a kid, I was a teenager, so I was very much so into my I'm watching horror non-stop phase. And it was funny because like it was around that time that my folks were saying like, oh, our son watches a lot of bloody movies where people are getting murdered a lot. Is there something wrong with him? Maybe, every parent of a horror fan reaches that point at some point. But it was funny because the movie that terrified me the most, as a teenager at least, was Legend of Hell House, which is very subtle with it. And that's what got me, was it's a haunted house movie where a lot of the stuff was noises from afar, noises from another room. And I grew up in a log house in the woods where it gets real quiet at night to the point where even if your windows aren't open, you can hear stuff going on in the woods. And in New Hampshire, we have Fisher cats. And those things sound like screaming babies at night. So when you hear a Fisher, it's kind of terrifying. So just the little things of like, is there like you just hear a noise and it's like, whoa, is that the house settling or is that someone in the house? Because you don't know. Anyone could be wandering through the woods. So Legend of Hell House fucked me up real bad as a teenager. But I would say the movie that terrified me the most, and it did for a good portion of my life, and it stems from childhood, is Ghost.
I have been wanting to hear this story. Let's do it.
Yes, do go on.
So, as you all know, the most I don't know if everyone knows. I actually did write an article about this. It was one of my first iHorror articles about how Ghost was the most terrifying movie for me. Ghost, for those who don't know, is I think it was early 90s, late 80s romance movie starring Demi Moore, Whoopi Goldberg, and my personal hero, Patrick Swayze. And it's about a man who dies, but doesn't go to heaven, instead has to solve his murder. And there's the famous clay scene where, they're very sexually making a pot.
To Unchained Melody.
Right. Oh, God. But the thing is that...
Bringing it back. He's sweating.
A little bit. But the thing about that movie is that it deals a lot with the afterlife, and so they show like someone going to heaven, but they also show a lot of people going to hell. And when people go to hell, it fucked me up as a child, because when a bad guy dies, they stand over their body and they always look really shocked. And then you start hearing these noises where it sounds like you hear goats go and like a bunch of like drum beat, and it's just like these really terrifying noises as these shadows just drag them off into the dark. And the first time I watched Ghost as a child, I was actually in Catholic school being taught by nuns. Okay. And let me tell you something. Nuns love telling children, like old school nuns love telling children they're going to go to hell. And when you're a little piece of shit like I was with ADHD, I got told it a lot. And I didn't believe them until I saw Ghost. And suddenly I was terrified, because as a child and through most of my life, even to this day, on occasion, I suffer from sleep paralysis, which happens when your mind is not quite asleep but not quite awake, but you still have, and this is a theory of course, but your body still produces the chemicals to allow you to sleep, because most of the time when you sleep you don't move, because if you moved and reacted to your dreams, you'd be running through walls. That's how you get people sleepwalking and stuff like that. And what can happen with that is that you have the chemicals in your brain that cause you to dream, but it can lead to hallucinations because you're not quite awake. So a lot of people see shadow people and see these black figures. A lot of people view them with red eyes or see them wearing hats. So Ghost just made it fucking real. it not only made it real, it amplified it, because it would just happen occasionally and I would just mark it off as a nightmare. But between a fucking Patrick Swayze movie and these nuns, it suddenly all became all too real. And most of my childhood, and again to this day, it terrifies the shit out of me. Nowadays I know that I can wake up, but man, when you're in that moment, it's terrifying, which also leads to the most terrifying movie I've seen recently, which was a documentary about sleep paralysis. I remember watching this movie when I was working at a record store. I was in the back of it was Amoeba. It's called The Nightmare. If you haven't seen it, it's honestly the most terrifying thing I've seen. And I was in the back of this record store switching cases on CDs. Very mindless work, so I'd always watch something. And I decided to watch this documentary about sleep paralysis. And what I witnessed was an hour and a half of other people recounting their tales of this thing that terrified me my entire life. And I knew other people, I looked into it a little bit. I knew other people suffered from it, but holy shit, just them talking about it. I remember stopping, switching out CD cases, and just trembling and just being filled with. I ended up going for my cigarette break early and was just sitting there trembling. One of my coworkers came out and I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm a child again. I'm terrified. And it wasn't even that I was even had one of those episodes recently, but I remember that night going to bed and trying to stay up as late as possible because I just did not want to have an episode induced because of this documentary. So, well,
the thing about The Nightmare is also it's done by Rodney Asher, I think, who did Room 237. Mm-hmm. So it's not your typical just documentary, talking head documentary. He's got the people who are talking about their waking nightmares, and then what you're seeing is basically a dramatization of it. So I can see how that would be triggering to somebody who has lived through it, because it's not just, it's not just like a, that's incredible, in search of kind of sterile documentary thing. I mean, it's an emotional pull.
Well, it's not even the fact that they would dramatize it. It was the fact that the cameras would move away from the person talking. They would show the crew. They would show while this is going on that the shadow man, as they kept referring to them, is just outside of it. And it was stuff like that just even talking about it right now, I'm shaking a little bit. Fuck that. It's a great movie. It's honestly a fantastic film. Holy shit, is it well made? But god damn, did it terrify me as a mid-20s person. Yeah, sorry, I'm stuttering now because of it. Just thinking about it.
You're talking about when you were talking about ghosts and hell and all that stuff, it made me remember another one from my childhood that really got me. Another moment more like it. Do you guys remember The Black Hole? Disney's The Black Hole?
Yeah.
And you know how they end up basically at the end when they go into the black hole, they kind of end up in hell. Yeah. But even before that, where the part where the crew of the Palomino figure out what happened, one of them pulls off the face off of what they think is just a robot, and it's like an actual person in there that Reinhardt, when it becomes clear that he took the crew from his ship and turned them into these mindless zombies to do his bidding, that just the face of the one that he pulled off really got to me when I was little as well. The more current movies that have scared me, I think I already went over it during our introduction episode. Event Horizon scared the living hell out of me, and that was mainly because I didn't know a thing about it when I saw it, and that's actually something I've chased since then. I generally don't like to see trailers. I have been literally plugging my ears and closing my eyes whenever the Heredity trailer comes on in a theater because I don't want to see a frame of that movie, and I think it stems from the rush of having the crap scared out of me by Event Horizon. But even more than that, it's not so much scary as it just disturbed me, kind of probably how Nightmare got to Korea. There's this movie from a few years ago called Megan is Missing. Did you guys see it?
I heard about it.
It's kind of like a fake documentary, found footage kind of thing, and it's basically, the title says it all. It's about a girl named Megan who, well, first her friend gets kidnapped, and then she gets kidnapped. About these two girls that get kidnapped. And she gets given a gift of a of a video camera. So she's videotaping everything that, happens. And then it's also interspliced with like reenactment footage and news reports and all the stuff of the disappearance. And the last 20 minutes is just one unbroken shot, because when she gets abducted, the guy also gets her video camera. And they find the video camera, they, meaning the authorities, find the video camera in like a trash can. So they play back the tape that's in it, in this documentary, supposedly the last 20 minutes. And it's essentially this little girl begging this dude for her life. And it is gut-wrenching. It really does. And I don't even have kids. I can only imagine what it would have been like watching that if I had a little girl. It really, it made me feel dirty, but it also, I couldn't get out of my head for like 2 weeks. I was like, what the hell did I just watch? And of course I've watched it again since then, because it's, once you know what's coming, it's more of a rush. But the first time, it was just so, it messed me up.
No, I'm with you. Like, I had a similar experience with Frank Darabont's The Mist. Like, yeah, that one still gets me. Definitely the first time, far more than any rewatches. Like, that was the thing. That movie was so powerful the first time around, it took me years before I could rewatch it. I mean, it still holds up.
Have you rewatched it with the black and white version, though? It's really good.
Haven't done the black and white version, but I would definitely like to try that someday.
Oh yeah, it still holds all its punches, but it comes off as more of like a 50s monster movie type. And the cool thing about The Mist is they actually shot it so that when it did go to black and white, before re-releasing stuff in black and white got cool, they, like, much like Mad Max, they shot it like lighting wise for black and white, but just did it in color, and it looks really, really good.
Yeah, no, I've been meaning to check out that version. Like, maybe I'll pick up the Blu-ray someday. But yeah, no, that one still gets to me. And yeah, I'm not sure necessarily if, I mean, it's definitely a scary movie, but I feel like it's more of a disturbing movie because it's also one of those types of stories where the humans are the worst monsters. Although I will say, is it cool if I do a spoiler from the movie since it's like 11 years old, or...
The Mist? Yeah, if you haven't seen The Mist, we're spoiling everything. I spoiled the last 20 minutes of Megan is Missing.
I'm spoiling The Mist here. I will say, though, my screening of it back in 2007 was pretty memorable because when Ms. Carmody got shot, like, the whole audience erupted into applause. This is like a sold-out show. It was amazing. Like, just booming applause. Like, thank you. This is what we wanted.
Right. Same thing happened at mine.
Yeah. I'm sure it happened at a lot of screenings of The Mist. Like, that was more of a relief than anything.
Let's start wrapping up here.
Yep.
I hope that you have enjoyed our discussion of what scares us, and we have a Facebook page now. So look up iHorror and go like our Facebook page and let us know what scares you, because we would like to know. Actually,
give us recommendations of stuff that could scare us too.
Yes,
we'd love to hear from the fans. So we made the Facebook group to be a bit more interactive, so we're going to be posting on there a bit more, and we're going to be asking questions. Who knows, maybe you might be inspiring a future episode. I know this week's episode was inspired by, as we jokingly call our number 2 fan, Lindsay Gant, who said that we should talk about Ghost. Because
I think Jacob and I both wanted to hear that story since you alluded to it anyway. So
right, no, she said that too. She said, since we mentioned it in a previous episode, she's like, you got to do that. You got to do it now more than later. So yeah.
Well, if she's our number 2 fan, who's number 1?
Oh, number 1 is Timothy Rawls,
editor-in-chief of iHorror. Yeah, and speaking of iHorror, actually, we got to give this a shout out. The iHorror Awards are open for business. So head on over to iHorror.com and vote for your favorites. See, you can watch the videos to see the nominees. I don't think there's anywhere where you can see the nominees without starting to vote, like see them in a list, but so you're going to vote anyway. Yeah. So go on over there. You have a chance to help decide who gets the statue.
And the really cool statue.
Yes, it's a great statue.
The statue's so cool. I hope to one day win one.
Yeah, makes me want to make a movie just so I can have one of those.
Make a good movie.
As always, our theme song is DMP, Death Metal Pope. Our artwork is Chris Fisher.
And of course, we wouldn't be here without Anthony Pernica, CEO of iHorror. Thank you, sir, for giving us time for us to talk about our childhood traumatizing moments.
Thanks, Anthony.
And follow us on Twitter. I am at Cinema Firite. That's like verite, but Firite. And Jacob is...
I'm at Jacob Davison _. That's at JACOB DAVISON _. And be sure to check out the iHorror Twitter handle, which is just at iHorror News.
And I'm, of course, Jonathan Correa. My handle is Korean Barbecue, spelled CORREIANBBQ.
Or you can get a hold of any of us at our new Facebook page. The Eye on Horror Facebook page. So come on over there. It's only got like 40 likes right now, so you can say that you were in on the ground floor if you head over there right now and like it. So that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I'm James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
And I'm Jonathan Correa.
Keep your eye on horror.